So who was the most prolifically awful person in this way in known history? Often cited individuals include the likes of nobles such as the 15th century Baron Gilles de Rais and the 16th century Countess Elizabeth Bathory de Exeter. As for Rais, who was a compatriot of none other than Joan of Arc, he is generally stated to have killed potentially even upwards of several hundred children for sexual gratification purposes. However, nailing down a definitive figure for his crimes is impossible. Not only this, what also might surprise many is that when digging into the matter, there is considerable question as to whether he actually committed any of the atrocities that he was tried and convicted for. As for the evidence against him, this on the surface seems ironclad in the form of a detailed confession from the man himself, testimonies from some of the parents, a confession from his bodyguard who was apparently heavily involved in the events, etc. However, despite having supposedly brutally tortured and murdered a truly massive number of children, there was zero physical evidence found to support this. Not so much as a scrap of clothing, a bloodstain, or bone found on his estate that could be tied to any of the children. This is noteworthy, as it's contrary to accounts you'll read in many biographies of the man that frequently claim that the remains of 40 bodies were uncovered at his residence. Support for this claim, however, seems non-existent, and it appears to be something someone wrote at some point in relatively modern times, and everyone else just assumed it to be true without looking at the original records that show no such evidence was ever presented at the trial, nor came up in any of the primary records of the investigation. As for rape, he claimed that he burned the bodies and the remains from there were thrown into places like the cesspit or buried. It's further noted that it was not any parents of the hundreds of missing children or the like that brought these alleged atrocities to light, but simply that Ray had gotten on the bad side of the church, who would soon after make these claims against him. A second investigation was then launched separate from that of the churches, which came to the same conclusion. Ray had kidnapped, brutally tortured, raped, and murdered countless children. In support of the skeptics, an important point to note in all of this was that the two judges prosecuting the trial, the Duke of Brittany, Jean de Montfort, and the Archbishop of Nantes, Jean de Maustrat, were slated to acquire the titles to many of Ray's lands if Ray was convicted of what the church had alleged that he'd done. On top of this, we should probably at this point mention that he was subjected to an Inquisition-style interrogation and further threatened with pretty brutal torture if he didn't confess. On top of that, he was also threatened with excommunication from the church if he didn't confess, which for an extremely religious man, as he appears to have been, was no small thing, especially when facing his imminent death. As Morgan State University professor of history John D. Hostler notes, all in all, the affair contains a number of pretty standard medieval tropes and accusations. Gilles' actual guilt is much held in doubt by historians today. That said, as he did technically confess and it can't otherwise be proven that he didn't do it either, he is still generally considered one of history's most prolific serial killers despite the doubt. Although exactly how many people he may or may not have killed, combined with the reasonable skepticism that he did any of it, well, let's just say we're not prepared to give him the crown of King of Awful. So, moving swiftly on, we have the case of Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory de Exeter, who is said to have brutally tortured and killed for her own perverse pleasure several hundred individuals of the female persuasion, potentially as many as 650. If estimates are true, she would not only be a relatively rare example of a female serial killer, but also likely the most prolific serial killer of all time, except here too, skeptics note that there are some fishy things about the trial, as well as the considerable benefit to others if the enormously wealthy countess and her family's influence in the region were curtailed. Much like Ray, this doesn't necessarily mean she didn't do at least some of these things, just that there is some reason, at the very least, to doubt the extent and, well, maybe even the entire thing. For example, many of the testimonies given of directly having seen physical evidence of these crimes were extracted via torture, and most of the rest of the testimonies were of people saying someone else had told them that they had seen things rather than witnessing them themselves. On top of this, the man who ordered the investigation, King Matthias II, owed a massive sum of money to the Countess, but if she was convicted, the debt was going to be cancelled. For whatever it's worth, she was in the end convicted and sentenced to more or less house arrest in her castle, where she remained until her death 4 years later in 1614. Thus, while both of these individuals could potentially be the most prolific serial killers of all time and are frequently cited as such, in both of these cases, and indeed many others similar from the distant past, it is difficult to determine the veracity of the claims against them. So, we are otherwise going to ignore them in crowning the king. So this all brings us to more modern and better documented times. Mr. Harold Shipman is often cited as the most prolific serial killer of all time simply because his murders were extremely well documented because he was a physician. Mr. Shipman was born in 1946 and seemingly had an otherwise normal middle-class upbringing, though his mother died of lung cancer when he was 17. This is generally pointed to as a possible significant event in his later deeds, given during her decline she was administered copious amounts of morphine by a home physician to ease her suffering. Why is this possibly important? This was more or less the method in which he would kill his elderly patients, most of whom were women, though not terminally ill as his mother had been. Mr. Shipman's particular method of murder was not unlike another famous serial killer, the nightmare nurse Jane Topham, who had administered doses of various drugs to mostly elderly patients, generally alternating morphine and atropine in her case. She later stated she enjoyed bringing them to the edge of death and back over the course of several days or weeks before ultimately decided to kill them. As for her motivation, this appears to have been sexual, and she apparently enjoyed crawling into bed and holding them while they died. For example, in one account of a surviving patient, one Amelia Finney, she described Topham giving her some drug after Finney underwent an operation. Not long after taking the drug, Finney lost consciousness, but later vaguely remembered Topham in bed with her, kissing her around her face before suddenly jumping out of bed and fleeing the room when someone was heard walking by. For much more on Miss Topham, you can go see our video, The Horrific Story of the Nightmare Nurse, on our sister channel Highlight History. In any event, going back to Shipman, his dastardly deeds were first suspected by one Linda Reynolds of the Brook Surgery in Hyde, England. In particular, she had noticed that an abnormally high number of Shipman's patients had a tendency to just up and die. The matter was ultimately investigated by the police, but no charges were filed owing to a lack of sufficient evidence pointing to the deaths being murder and not just the unlucky physician having many of his elderly patients die. Despite the investigation, after being cleared, Shipman went on with his murderous ways, which seems more than a little bizarre after the spotlight had been on him. Things became even more questionable in terms of either his intelligence or maybe just because he wanted to get caught. As his last victim, one Kathleen Grundy, he didn't just kill. On top of the murder, he created a will that not only excluded her children, but left nearly £400,000 to Shipman himself. Let's just say the authorities had collective raised eyebrows when her daughter, Angela Woodruff, brought all of this to their attention. Body exhumed, the investigators found that Grundy had diamorphine, also known as heroin, in her system. Shipman countered that Grundy had a heroin addiction and even backed up these claims with notes that he'd taken about this. Unfortunately for him, these digital files were later shown to have been written after her death. And it was on. A full investigation was launched, coined the Shipman Inquiry, with the 2-year investigation coming up with some startling conclusions. Among other things, the findings estimated that at least 218 of Shipman's patients had been murdered, with another couple dozen in question, but potentially to also have been murdered. For reference here, over the course of his work, a total of 459 of his patients died under his care over a 27-year span. As for the subset that died via murder, as noted, the vast majority of these individuals were elderly women, with his modus operandi being to give the patients a lethal dose of diamorphine. After he murdered them, he would go back and alter records to make it seem as if they'd been much sicker than they actually were. 4 years after his conviction on 15 of the murders, Shipman was found on the morning of January 13, 2004 by prison officials having performed his final murder, hanging himself in his cell using bedsheets that he'd tied to the bars on his window. Not long before this, he'd told an official he was considering killing himself, as if he lived past 60, his wife would no longer be entitled to his National Health Service pension. He was 58 at the time of his death.